Another theme that turned out to be common in several of the artists' work that they saw as related to time, and so did I, is the theme of identity and the whole process of establishing an identity and how it may shift and change over time, and what the relational things are that make you know that you are who you are. That has an interesting relationship to age, because actually most of us feel several different ages a lot of the time inside. If you ask somebody how old they feel inside, they'll often give you an answer that's really different from the age on their driver's license, and that was something I talked about in the conversations with the artists. A couple of the younger artists in the show felt very clearly that their work was very explicitly about the process of both developing and unearthing the appropriate identity for them in these times at their age. Lauren Kelly makes videos, animated videos with claymation figures, drawings, and so on. And they have a great deal to do with identity as a challenge for younger African-American women in our culture. The storyboards behind me are her preparatory drawings, so to speak, for a video that she's not yet made, and it's about flight attendants. And one of the things that I thought was interesting about it is that what Lauren shows you in her work is the backstory. So that if you're encountering a flight attendant, as in this one, or perhaps a librarian, Lauren shows you what the life is like from day to day that leads up to putting on the uniform and dealing with the public. So in the storyboards here, you see the flight attendants not just uniform and smiling on the airplanes. You also see them going about their own lives and moving around in the world and among people with whom they're arbitrarily in relation. It's a very interesting way to think about how people have multiple identities and relate to each other, and what the pressures are to perform certain roles. Now, another one of the artists in the show, Kelly Vance, makes large paintings. I'm going to walk over here so that you can see, I hope, one or two of Kelly's paintings. And her work is, again, very much dealing with identity and with what I started out calling social time. The way that the time you spend in interacting with other people, your friends, your dates, your workplace, those are all a big part of how you construct certain expectations and relationships that really are about your identity, but they're kind of worked out in social time. And Kelly's paintings in the past involved, as she and I agreed, a lot of party clothes. You could tell a lot about the people from what they were wearing. And in her more recent work, she told me she had decided to try to get deeper into the subject, figure out what it was she was saying by clothing people in certain clothes, and just take the clothes off and see what the questions were and who the people were that were actually putting their lives forth in her paintings. Now, a very traditional way of looking at your identity is family pictures, family snapshots through the generations. So although in one way Kelly's paintings are kind of postmodern family paintings, another artist in the show, Deborah Rube, is a photographer who has documented her family, especially the women folk and friends, over a period of many decades. Deborah actually documented a lot of the Houston Women's Caucus for Art activities in their early decades. So she's represented by work that is in black and white from 20 years ago. It shows her grandmother, who was then living, her mother, herself, and her sisters, only one of whom even has a baby in these photographs. But then, as you move to the next one, Deborah is working in the current period. She's now working in color, and she's printing on her own computer printer. And the grandmother now in these pictures is the woman who's her mother and was in the middle in the earlier black and white photographs. And those who were babies in the black and white photographs have grown up, and in some cases have babies of their own, and there's a new generation appearing in the photographs. So Deborah's work is about time and continuity and identity expressed in a very traditional way, but also with this interesting look at the way she was picturing these things then and now. I don't know if you can see. I don't know if you can see the pictures that I'm talking about, but I'm particularly crazy about the one of Granny reading the newspaper. I love that. And then as you move on across the group, there are the sisters, and Deborah, the photographer, is on the far right. And here they are, 20 years later, and the mother's still in the middle, but now she's the grandmother with a new generation around her. Now, Toby Topak deals with memory and the collection of journeys and memories and thoughts and recollections in a completely different way. Her work, this is an example of one called The Sum of All Parts, and it is, in effect, a self-portrait. So next to Deborah's family portraits in the gallery, you have Toby Topak's self-portrait, and it's composed of small versions of all of the images that recur and have recurred for a long time in her work. Boats and vessels, tents and woven things, necklaces, and all of these motifs, little semi-transparent boxes and parcels in which recollections and emotions and ideas are kept. So this is a self-portrait of a completely different kind in terms of medium from Deborah Ruth's self-portraits, but they're all dealing with the question of the way that identity is something accumulated over time. And in Toby's larger piece, I'm not sure if you can see it through the gallery, memory is a big theme in that work. She uses photographs made on a journey in the Bay of Fundy where the tides are high, webs of net that are stretched across to keep things from washing in and washing out. She told me that metaphorically the fog was sort of like looking ahead into an unknown future, and she's going into that future with her longtime companions, the tent and the boat, the vessels and the necklaces, things collected from her journeys and her many studies of different people in different parts of the world. So for Toby, memory and identity and creativity are all going forward at the same time. Lynn Randolph makes paintings that bring together the human, the biological, other species in our environment, and really ask us to look at ourselves as part of a tremendously long time span in an actually rather fragile environment. So when she makes a painting that shows a young woman in the wetlands with birds that may be quite ancient, the question that's raised by that is, can you get around the ladder? I keep trying not to walk under the ladder. Lynn's putting a fairly contemporary-looking young woman in a setting that actually could be read as perhaps quite ancient. But these are fragile environments, and what's becoming of those wetlands? What's becoming of those birds and their habitats? So, and what's going to become of the young human creatures who are coming along in this environment where we know, if we care to face it, that there's a great deal at work that may be very destructive and harmful to the living creatures in the world that we all commonly inhabit. So that's a sort of relationship to what you might call evolutionary time or biological time. In other ones of her paintings, Lynn has begun a series, you might say the Four Seasons, because these are two of them, winter and summer. And again, you can see that she pairs portraits of people she knows who are placed here with other living creatures and with natural landscapes in a way that is a reminder that whatever our personal time on the planet is, that it's part of a much larger and longer sequence of time, and that we should be perhaps thoughtful about how we see ourselves in relation